Channels Television's Amarachi Ubani on our Foreign Affairs program, Diplomatic Channel, spoke to Doug Brooks, the founder of International Stability Operations Association, who has spent a lot of time in the Ukraine. There are fears that Russia could employ the use of chemical weapons, according to Mr. Brooks, and this would be terrible for everyone.
Do you think Russia wants NATO to be involved in this war, NATO and the United States?
Well, NATO and the United States are involved in the war. Obviously, they're shipping weapons. They've been doing training for the Ukrainian military, excellent training for ever since 2014. A direct confrontation with Russia, I think Russia does not want to see that. Just to put this in perspective, Germany has just decided to increase its defense spending by 25%, so 1/4. That 25% is equivalent of the entire Russian military budget. And that's just one out of, 30 countries in NATO. And a lot of countries are increasing their military budget. So I think Russia definitely does not want to have a direct confrontation with NATO any more than NATO wants to confront Russia.
Many have wondered, Doug, if Russia would find some excuse to introduce chemical weapons into this war. What would be the consequences of that?
I think that would be terrible for everybody. Certainly the U.S., who has been very open with their intelligence, has been saying that the Russians are toying with this idea of using chemical weapons. I think it would be a disaster for everybody. The U.S. and the West has basically said this would be a red line for them. This is something that should not be done. There's a lot of reasons from a tactical perspective that you don't use chemical weapons. It's hard to understand why the Russians would in this particular case, unless Putin, I should say, is simply in it for vengeance. But I sincerely hope, and I think everybody sincerely hopes, that the Russians do not take that step.
Now, speaking of Putin, I'm glad you mentioned him. He's promised, sometime last week, he said that the worst is yet to come in this war. What do you think he meant by that?
Well, he's probably right. The war has, I think the Russians have been very disappointed by the results so far. They've not been able to take Kiev, the capital in Ukraine. They've not been able to take any of the large cities. And the resistance from the Ukrainians, I think, has astonished the Russians. Also, the Russians have found out that their military is not nearly as professional as they thought. So this has been very, very bad for them. And their alternatives at this point are to withdraw or to negotiate a withdrawal, or perhaps become more brutal. And some sources are saying that they're running out of their guided weapons or guided munitions, meaning that the weapons they'll have less are going to be the more area effect, which is to say these multiple rocket launchers and so on. Essentially, you're not aiming at a target, a specific target, so much as an area, which could be very well a city, as we've seen in some of the videos coming out of the conflict. So yes, it could become much, much more brutal. We hope that does not go there. The Russian military is feeling this one. It's not going well, and the hope is that maybe saner heads will prevail in Russia, and they will come up with a better solution than simply brutalizing their neighbor.
For more on that interview, do watch Diplomatic Channel today, 14th of March at 8:30 p.m. right here on Channels Television.